Thanks for the introduction. I think every time I get introduced as a mining engineer, I cringe because it's just a certificate that sits at the bottom of the drawer in my office, and I don't think I could claim being a mining engineer for about 30 of my 35 years, to be honest. So I don't want to take it away from the engineers who are really doing the work out there. Let me start off by offering Victor's apologies, Victor Regissuria, our CEO, for not being here to entertain you with either a cricket reference, which he has done historically, or another chapter from the Game of Thrones. I'm not too sure what character I might be, or even Brett for that fact, but it's been suggested that Tyrion perhaps might be my character. That's the one that had to keep the King of the North on the right path. I'll let you work out what other characteristics Tyrion and I might have in common. No one watches Game of Thrones, I take it. Okay, right now the King of the North is in Bali for an overdue break with his family, and let me quote him directly, he's working on his tan. He said that would get a laugh, that's good. Okay, so instead you have me to give you an overview of our long-term single asset nickel, copper and cobalt producing operation. And if you missed the slide oversight in our September quarterly production release, just look up hot copper, and they picked it up. Okay, let me go to the disclaimer. I'll take that as read. You probably had plenty of time to read that. And now a bit of a corporate overview. So a high-level summary of some of the key corporate measures and metrics at the end of September, and 2.5 year trend of our share price performance, which is obviously closely indexed to nickel price being our primary product. The board, and I acknowledge one of my colleagues, Peter Sullivan, in the audience, and one of our key executives in Grant Dyker as well, our CFO. The board's been established since well before the commencement of the ramp-up, and so we are committed to delivering value for our shareholders as we move forward. Our shareholding has changed over the year, predominantly with the takeover of Western Areas by IGO. And as we know, IGO is a standout and transformational enterprise that is clearly more than just an interest in Panoramic, but more importantly, nickel itself, and that's what predominantly we produce. Quick overview of the landscape. So the left insert is where we sit in the Kimberley. Bit of a challenge for us because it's actually hard to get to. It takes time, okay? And that's an issue that I'll reference back to labour shortly. In the central middle insert, you can see our tenement holding, and you can see that we're surrounded by tenements held by our principal shareholder, IGO. And then to the right is a schematic of the old Savannah mine, which is largely depleted, but is still within our production schedule, so the remnant mining. And then below that to the right is the Savannah North mine, which we've opened up and are developing as fast as we can and opening up because that's where the future lies. A quick snapshot of our recent trends and highlights, and I'm pleased to say that safety is improving, and that's usually a lead indicator of a healthy culture and a welcome culture, and so I'm pleased that that's the case for us at the moment, particularly when it comes to the guys on site who, you know, underground mining is notoriously known as having greater hazards than other operations, and that's a fact. But what this tells us is that the guys on site are actually managing the hazards responsibly. We're still in ramp-up mode, and if not for the drain on labour, capacity and skills brought on by what I say is effective and responsible management of COVID over the last couple of years, we would by now have established more working fronts than what we have. And the reason why that's important is in underground mining, it's really important to provide optionality because not everything goes always to plan. So having options to then be able to vary your production stream is important. Cash balance is always going to be sensitive to shipping schedules and availability, and consequently in the September quarter we chose to draw down on the revolving facility that we had with Trafigura. Finally, I'll talk to the resource and reserve statement that's been released shortly. In terms of mining operations, quarter on quarter, almost all of the major physical measures showed an improvement, and it's no coincidence that labour availability and capability also improved over that time. So we have seen, obviously with the opening of the borders, allowed more people to come up and join us. It doesn't take away from the fact that, and you've heard it probably from many other presenters yesterday and you will today, that there is a distinct shortage of labour. And let me, just to quote some numbers, there's like 160,000 vacancies and 120,000 people that can fill them in the industry. So it's a real challenge for everybody, not just for Panoramic. Overlay that the difficulty in attracting people to a site which takes 3/4 of a day to get to, it makes it harder. Not impossible, just makes it harder. But as I said, there's been some relief of late and we're hoping that'll continue. Costs will continue to be a focus for FY23 and into 24, and labour costs and fuel costs are expected to be the big hitters going forward. We are seeing some relief on the shipping costs at the moment, but they're offset by FX. So you win on one hand and then they take on the other. Operationally, paste plant's hitting its straps, so it's been able to deliver the output rates that we expected and better on a short-term basis. So now the challenge is actually being able to string that together when we need it, and that'll keep the production schedule working the way it should do. We have 3 mining fronts at the moment to operate and produce from, and capital development is a bit ahead of the stoping front, which is where you want to be, so you can create the drill platforms to then do more res definition drilling and grade control drilling and shore up the stoping blocks moving forward. So it's all shaping up pretty good. In terms of processing operations, our principal partner to run the plant is Primero, and they're performing satisfactorily, but it's all yet to be put through its paces, because until mining hits its straps fully and starts to fill the mill, they've got a bit of latitude to be able to deliver still actually good results along the way. Like for all plants, improved recovery is your biggest lever, not just in terms of the metal that you put out and your payability, but also in terms of reducing your costs, because it doesn't take too much, apart from a bit of smarts usually, to be able to raise that recovery up. Even just 1% is significant. So everyone's working towards that, and you can see quarter on quarter we've demonstrated some improvement there as well. In summary, basically quarter on quarter almost all metrics have improved. So let's move forward into exploration upside. I guess it's been progressed judiciously for now, but it's been fruitful enough to more than replace the FY22 depleted reserves. So that's always encouraging. And resource definition drilling will be the short-term focus to shore up the additional working fronts and provide more reliable production from the Savannah North. But of course, get this right, there's more. We recently released the results of some drilling above the 900 fault. Now the 900 fault is not Savannah North, it's actually the old Savannah, it's below the Savannah mine. And that's really great news for us. We've drilled out pretty well everything that's on the left-hand side. I'll get this right in a minute. All that's been drilled out, and now we're working on a strategy to drill below the 900 fault. The results are actually public in terms of some of the intercepts, but I guess strategically the reason why this is important, and I talked about it earlier on, if you can actually create optionality, establish more mining fronts, that actually helps you shore up the production from underground, which then fills the mill, which then we deliver as much metal as we can within the other physical constraints that we have. So that's all good news. The other good news is that the drill results have actually proved up slightly better thicknesses than what was originally modelled in the reserve and resource modelling. And we've got the engineers who are busily working on the studies to convert that into a reserve, and then we can work out how we get in there and actually start to extract that. It's actually also strategic because we were going to operate in producing both from the Savannah North mine, which is the principal production source, but the remnants from the Savannah mine were also part of the future mining schedule. Now, remnant mining is always challenging and can be a bit of a problematic situation at times. This actually gives us some fairly fresh ore that we can actually now supplement any issues that we might come across in terms of the remnant mining. So it's good. This gives you a bit of a feel for some of the main results that we have published. So great thicknesses and pretty good grades. And those thicknesses are pretty close to true width because we've been able to drill almost perpendicular to the resource. So there won't be too much variation. The grades ultimately, when converted into reserve, will obviously be diluted, et cetera, so there'll be some variation once it's actually converted into a stope mineable block. But they're quite encouraging hits, and I guess the key point to raise here, well, I guess I'll just describe. The pale yellow is the thickness that was previously modelled. The darker orange around that is the new thicknesses that are being modelled based on the drill results that we've been able to achieve. So you can see there's two sections in there. They're two sections of many, but that's demonstrating the sort of benefit that we've picked up through this drill program. The other key point here is to just acknowledge how close the development is. That's the development there. That's the development from the old Savannah mine, so it's readily accessible. It will take us no time to get in there and to be able to produce, create those new mining fronts. Stepping out of the mine and looking at a broader picture around the tenements, we've got some other interesting targets, but our plan at the moment is just to progress those incrementally and in good time, just there for interest. We're not just limited to what we have within the Savannah mine at this stage in terms of potential opportunity. So what are we doing to support a sustainable future for future generations? Really, that's ultimately what this question is, a question that should be facing us all. We've got two key initiatives. You might say there's many that we could be doing. There are, but you need to sometimes focus on one or two things and do them well, rather than try and cover all bases. The first one is to do whatever we can to reduce our carbon footprint. We've looked at wind as a source of renewable energy, but couldn't make that work. And now we're looking at solar and batteries. And we've got a location that's available near mine, about 20 hectares for a solar farm. And with the assistance of Pacific Energy, our energy supply partners, we hope to be able to make that work moving forward. The second thing that we're doing is we're working with Barminco and hoping to adopt any electric vehicle technology that comes forward for underground mines. And we're using Barminco because they're a tier 1 mining contractor, and they're probably the ones who can best leverage the technology as it becomes real and viable. So we're looking forward to that. It's not just about carbon footprints, by the way, with electric vehicles. There are other benefits that are operational, one of which is heat generation, and the second one is, of course, the quality of ventilation underground improves dramatically. Second initiative is in terms of communities. And what we're doing there is we have programs to try and promote the business development and local employment of our communities. We've got a program that we support, the Teach, Learn, Grow program, and we have local employment. It's been somewhat hampered by COVID, obviously, because of the local community and not wanting to expose our community unnecessarily, but it has been active and will continue to be active as we can. Not bad timing. Okay. So just in summary and in closing, safety is on track. It's improving, which is great. As I said, it's an indicator of good culture. Offtakes are in place for our high-quality nickel concentrate, and the steady-state production is in our sights, and we aim to be there by FY24 or within FY24. at which point we should be able to fill the mill. That's the intent, and that's what we're aiming towards. The labour challenges that we've had in the past have been easing, and now we actually have pretty close to 100% contingent of people. And before that, by the way, just in terms of cost, and I missed this point, as many mining companies have had to do, they've had to pay a premium. So where there's been a shortage of labour, there's had to be a premium paid for what labour is available to try and fill the gaps. So it's another contribution. It's not just about the wage and the salary, it's also about the premiums you pay on top. We've got a 12-year mine life with potential for more, so the resource is still open at depth, as we've seen, where we're drilling down under the 900 fault. And I guess the bottom line is that using the June 22 budget prices, we've got a business that should deliver about 1.2 billion in NPV, or about $1.8 billion in free cash. So on that note, spot on, thank you. Just say thanks very much, and I just want to acknowledge Pay Dirt for giving us the opportunity again. Thank you.